Hello dear students, this is Sushma Singh and you are watching Booster Classes. I welcome you all to today's session with a very big heart. Today we will be doing the comprehensive study of Shirley Toulson's remarkable poem titled A Photograph from Hornbill Book of Standard 11 CBSE. This poem is a tribute to her mother. Students, I would recommend you all to watch the video till the end so that you can get the in-depth explanation of this sensitive poem. And yes, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, just hit the subscribe button right now and get benefited. Before moving on to the summary of this sensitive poem, first and foremost, let me give you its overview. The entire poem runs through the lament of loss of something near and dear. And the nostalgic feeling is presented prominently over here because this poem is set in the memories of two women, the poet and her mother. A photograph has evoked powerful memories in them, and it has brought about a sense of nostalgia. The mother's memory is in the form of the photograph that is referred to in the title of the poem. She misses her past as a little girl visiting the beach with her cousins. On the other hand, the poet's memory is that of a mother who has passed away. The poet remembers how her mother would look at an old photograph to cheer herself up. In both the cases, the women grieve for the past that they have lost. As regards the tone and style of the poem, we can say that the tone of this poem undergoes a great change from the beginning of the poem to its end. At first, the tone of this poem is both nostalgic and joyful because the poet looks at an old photograph of a mother in her childhood, whereas the tone of sadness creeps in when the poet compares the unchanging sea with the brevity of human life. The entire poem is written in free verse, and simplicity, clarity, and preciseness are the hallmarks of all the three stanzas of this poem. There is no rhyme scheme in this poem. Let's now find out what strong message this profound poem has to convey. Brevity of human life is the major theme of this poem. The idea conveyed is that life is very short, hence it is important to cherish every moment of life. Humans are mortal, so we must live our lives to the fullest and never let sorrow conquer our lives. Loss of separation and pain is highlighted in this poem. Death of near and dear ones leaves us speechless. We humans are helpless to stop anyone from dying. Change is the law of nature. This fact is also one of the underlying themes of this poem. Everything changes with time. So the poet warns that this bitter fact needs to be recognized and accepted by all of us. Here, I'll give you a blow-by-blow explanation of the first stanza of this sensitive poem. The first stanza throws light on poet's mother's childhood when there was gaiety and laughter all around. In the opening four lines, the poet describes looking at a cardboard on which there is a childhood photograph of her mother. This childhood photograph shows the poet how life was when the two cousins went paddling, that is barefooted, in the sea holding the poet's mother's hand, probably for support and safety. Because the eldest girl, the poet's mother, was of 12 years at that time. The photographs also creates a happy past, which is now as lifeless as the cardboard it is pasted on. In the next few lines, the poet further describes the interesting moments that has been captured in the snapshot. All three of them stood still and smiling at the uncle's camera. The smile over here is indicative of carefree and youthful spirit. While they were posing for the photograph, their hair tossed across their faces, possibly because of the beach wind. One face in the picture draws the poet's attention to a greater degree than the other two faces. It is her mother's face that she is concentrating on, and the poet finds her mother's face very charming, very sweet. She also says that the photograph was taken long before her own birth. Since then, all those who are in the photograph have changed a lot, because we all know that people change, they grow old and die. But the sea, which represents the nature over here, remained the same. Now, the last two lines of the first stanza is very crucial, because it conveys that the sea in the photograph has not changed over the years and is still the same today, whereas the human feet, the imprints of which are being washed away by the sea, are transient. The poet calls the human feet transient because time spares none. A deep and significant contrast has been drawn in the last two lines between the sea, which is the symbol of nature over here, and the human feet represents or symbolizes humans. The sea symbolizes permanence, immortality, and eternity of nature, whereas the feet symbolize short-lived faith of human beings. Human life is subject to change in terms of age and circumstances. This makes the poet realize that life is short, and hence we must cherish every moment we get to spend with our loved ones. The second stanza describes the middle-aged mother of the poet laughing at her own snapshot and her passing away. In the first four lines of this stanza, the spirit of nostalgia continues as the poet recounts how her mother would often look at the photograph of her childhood about 20-30 years later, and would how she would recall about the day it was taken. That is, her mother used to recall her childhood at the age of 32 or 42. The poet even remembers her mother laughing nostalgically, trying to relive those childhood moments, and telling her to look at how the cousins Betty and Dolly had dressed up for the beach holiday. She found it so hilarious at the manner that they dressed up. Now, in these lines, the poet says that photograph of the sea holiday was remembered by her mother with great fondness. Her mother felt a sense of loss. The mother lost her old happy days on the sea beach. That is, childhood innocence and youthful spirit that the photograph had captured some years ago. On the other hand, the poet has lost the sweet and beautiful smile of her mother. The laughter of poet's mother could not be seen by the poet again because she has lost her mother. A pleasant seaside holiday was her mother's past at that time, and mother's sweet laughter was poet's past now. Now the last line, that is, both arrive with the laboured ease of loss. Here both signify their respective losses and the pain involved in recollecting the past. Thus, in both cases, the memories of the past made the two women suffer and that they labored. This conveys that they struggled hard to get over the sense of loss. Both of them felt disappointed as they tried hard to come to terms with what they had lost. Yet, both realized that the loss was final and they had to accept their loss and pain. Therefore, ease was there. Considering at the level of the deeper meaning of the concluding stanza, we can say that the final stanza depicts the poet's sense of loss at her mother not being alive. Cruel hands of time and fate have snatched her away. The photograph, as a matter of fact, the photograph of her dead mother makes the poet nostalgic and brings sad feeling from the past. Her mother has been dead for 12 years. That is the same number of years that was the age of her mother in the photograph she had been looking at. Now, in the line and all of these circumstances, this circumstance refers to the death of poet's mother and the fact that the death has silenced her mother. It has also left the poet with no words to express the loss. She has lost her mother and her beautiful smile forever. So the poet is now consumed with grief and only emptiness remains. The line, it silences. Here the poet is expressing, through this line, the poet is indeed expressing her sense of loss through this line. Its silence refers to the silence of death that made the poet completely speechless, leaving her in utter pain. Death of her mother made the poet unable to vocalize what effect her mother's death has had on her. The extensive quietness and prevailing gloom actually silences her. She has nothing to say at all about this hard and painful circumstance, because death silences everyone. Death is final and irrevocable. Man can do nothing about it. Hence, the poet has simply to accept it. However, the poet has had a very difficult time dealing with her mother's death. To lend deeper meaning to this profound poem and to create an effect, the poet has used various literary elements. So students, this slide contains all the poetic devices used by the poet along with examples and their definitions. Note them down so that you can revise later on. Here are a few important questions that will surely help you to check your comprehension. So without fail, give an attempt to solve them and deepen your understanding. You can just take help from the explanation which I have just given to you. Keep watching to get the detailed analysis of other chapters as well as poem. And yes, students, I am really looking forward to your valuable comments. Thank you for watching.